You already know the classic bounty hunter tropes, right?
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah.
battered armor, the rusty ship.
Yeah, the ship held together by duct tape and sheer willpower. The lone wolf just, tracking a target across some neon-lit galaxy.
Right? The usual grim, sprawling sci-fi stuff.
Exactly. If you're a fan of those universes, we really don't need to rehash the basics. You know how the job is supposed to work. You get a name, you grab the target, you collect your credits.
It's always framed as a straight line. Very simple, highly transactional violence.
But today, we are pulling from a tabletop role-playing game supplement that takes that entire assumption and just, well, it throws it completely out the airlock.
It really does. It shatters that illusion completely. We are looking at excerpts from Wages of Sin, a bounty hunting toolkit.
And it is a wild ride.
It is. The designers here recognize that we are, heavily conditioned by pop culture to view this as a solitary, almost surgical profession.
Drop in, grab the guy, get out.
Right. You extract the asset and leave. But this text fundamentally rejects that premise. It doesn't treat crime and punishment as this series of standalone, isolated quests that just happen in a vacuum.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because our mission today for this deep dive is to explore how a bounty in this universe is never just an island.
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah, think of it less like a simple shopping list that you can just check off, and more like pulling a loose thread on a very, very ugly sweater.
Love that analogy.
Right. The harder you pull on that one target, the more the entire social and economic system around them just unravels. You might think you're just grabbing a fugitive, but mechanically, the game ensures you are making waves.
Massive ways.
You're simultaneously destabilizing a local economy, or angering a syndicate, or maybe accidentally uncovering a massive corporate conspiracy.
What's fascinating here is that the text fundamentally treats the universe as a living, highly reactive ecosystem. The underlying game design forces the tabletop world to adapt to every single action a player takes.
It's not just moving pieces on a board.
Not at all. You aren't just pushing miniature figures across a static grid. Your mere presence as a hunter acts as an active catalyst for chaos. The mechanics demand a cause and effect for literally everything.
But before we even get to the specific fugitives, we have to talk about the bizarre conditions that shape these hunts.
Oh, the modifiers, yeah.
Because you really can't understand the targets without understanding the chaotic pressures of the universe they inhabit. The source material provides these massive tables of random modifiers that a game master can just attach to any given contract.
It keeps the players on their toes, for sure.
Definitely. You roll a die, and suddenly the reality of the job completely shifts.
And these situational modifiers force players to immediately abandon their standard tactical approaches. Let's say a game master rolls on the complication table.
Okay.
A player group takes what looks like a standard retrieval job, right?
Okay.
Only to discover, unbeknownst to everyone, maybe even the client who issued the bounty, that the target is secretly an android.
Oh, wow, wait. Which fundamentally breaks your entire loadout.
Exactly. It changes the whole game.
I mean, if you're a player, you packed for a biological target. You brought stun batons, chemical tranquilizers, maybe some flashbangs or something.
Stuff that works on people who breathe.
Right. Suddenly you kick down a door and you're dealing with synthetic muscle fibers and optical sensors that aren't blinded by light. And a target that doesn't even need oxygen.
The mechanics shift from a standard combat encounter to something much, much deadlier.
But the demands from the clients themselves, they get even stranger than that. The text outlines a modifier where the client specifically needs the target captured alive because they require them for a human sacrifice.
Which is just wildly dark.
Seriously.
But that puts the players in an immediate moral bind. You aren't delivering a criminal to the authorities to face justice anymore. You are essentially facilitating a ritualistic murder for some zealot.
You become an accessory.
Exactly. Within the context of the game setting, it forces the players to weigh their need for in-game currency against the horrific realities of the factions they are serving. Do you take the credits to upgrade your ship, knowing you just handed someone over to a literal cult?
That is heavy. And then, some modifiers feel like deliberate, cruel jokes played on the players.
Like the documentary crew.
Yes. There is a specific condition where the client requires the bounty hunters to be filmed by a documentary crew the entire time they're working the job.
It's hilarious, but terrifying.
I have to admit some confusion here, though. If you have a literal camera crew following you while you're trying to breach a heavily guarded safe house, doesn't that make the game unplayable? Doesn't that just turn a highly trained tactical squad into, like, A reality TV cast?
Well, it shifts the entire mechanical framework of the encounter. From a gameplay perspective, having a boom mic operator hovering
Right.
behind your character means you can't just rely on your weapon stats.
Because you're being watched.
Right. You now have to worry about optics and collateral damage. The game master might impose heavy penalties on your stealth rolls because a camera guy tripped over a cable.
Oh man, that would be so frustrating.
But conversely, you might get a bonus to your intimidation checks if you effectively play to the camera. It turns a standard combat encounter into a complex narrative puzzle.
Like social engineering and public relations management with guns.
Precisely.
You're trying to interrogate an informant in a dark alley, but you have to pause to make sure your lighting is hitting your good side. It's incredibly dystopian.
It really highlights the absurdity of the setting.
Or consider the twist where, after hours of investigative legwork at the table, the players discover that the client who issued the bounty and the target they are hunting are the exact same person.
Which is such a brilliant curveball. The game wants you to ask why. Why would an NPC issue a hit on themselves?
Yeah, what's the angle?
Are they testing their own security apparatus? Are they trying to lure a specific crew of bounty hunters into a kill box? The ecosystem demands that players engage with the underlying logic of the universe.
Instead of just pointing a gun at the first thing that moves.
Exactly. You have to think critically.
And it's this ecosystem of bizarre conditions that produces incredibly weird targets. Because to survive in a universe with these kinds of pressures, you can't be just a standard issue criminal.
No, you'd get caught on day one.
Right. Let's look at some of the specific cases the source material provides for game masters to use. My absolute favorite is Z-Potato.
Oh, Z-Potato is a brilliant example of how a target can weaponize the very system designed to hunt them.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because Z-Potato is a hacker with a bounty issued by something called the CompuSec High Interest Capture Fund.
Which is a very intimidating name.
From what I gather, CompuSec isn't just a police force. It's a massive corporate entity that securitizes bounties almost like financial derivatives.
They turn human lives into stock options.
Yeah, exactly. But Z-Potato didn't just go off the grid to hide. They hacked into the official, highly secured bounty posting network and edited their own wanted ad.
The sheer disrespect.
They added little smiley faces to the official corporate document. They openly mocked this massive security apparatus, calling them the pigs, the fuzz, and the rozzers.
The audacity goes even further than that, though. The official posting template usually reads, wanted, dead, or alive.
Right, the standard legal phrasing.
Well, Z-Potato altered the master database, so their specific entry reads, quote, wanted, dead or alive, or let free to continue their merry journey.
That is amazing, and the text notes there is a staggering 15 million credit reward for this hacker.
Of fortune.
And Z-Potato actually left a comment next to their own payout amount saying, not enough. They are treating a literal life or death hit on their own head like a message board joke.
It's fascinating.
It's like dealing with an internet troll who has turned their fugitive status into a performance piece. But the text gives game masters a very stern warning about this.
Right, they aren't harmless.
Not at all. Despite the smiley faces, Z-Potato will absolutely escalate to lethal means in a fraction of a second if the players actually corner them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, a character like Z-Potato demonstrates that targets in this toolkit are not passive. They don't just sit in a dark room waiting for the players to kick the door down.
They are actively playing the game.
They use their wealth, their specific skill sets, and the bounty system itself as leverage. Z-Potato is controlling the narrative of their own capture, making the hunters and the corporate clients look foolish before the hunt even begins.
And the motivations driving these bounties are rarely as simple as theft or murder. Contrast Z-Potato's high-tech trolling with a target named Sibelius Jagastad.
A very different kind of target.
Very different. Sibelius is a correctional officer in a sprawling, brutal prison complex. And his crime, according to the official posting, is moral absolutism.
Which is just wild to see on a wanted poster.
I know. He is a strictly moral guard who simply refuses to take bribes or participate in the rampant institutional corruption around him.
Which makes him a massive liability for the criminal element operating inside that prison.
Well, wait, let me rephrase that. It makes him a target for a very specific kind of retaliation.
Right.
A massive pornography kingpin operating from inside the prison, a guy named Arwel Ennis, puts out a hit on Sibelius. The text notes that Ennis finds the guard inflexible and just wants to see him broken.
It's completely spiteful.
He even offers the players a bonus payout if they can make the murder look like an accident.
This scenario forces the players to confront the inversion of morality that defines this genre. The syndicate bosses are the clients issuing the paychecks, and the upstanding citizens are the targets.
The bad guys are the law. Then you have Agustin Estrada. Agustan's execution was actually stipulated by a will.
Yes, the automated hit.
He apparently failed in his duties to a wealthy estate, so the estate's lawyers put a bounty on him to fulfill the legal requirements of a dead person's will.
It's so bureaucratic.
Imagine the legal framework of a universe where death doesn't terminate a contract. It just triggers an automated assassination clause. And Agustin is spending his final days trying to take revenge on a survey team.
Players stepping into that scenario aren't just acting as law enforcement. They are injecting themselves into deeply personal, long-standing vendettas.
They become a weapon.
Exactly. They become the violent instruments of someone else's petty grievance or legal loophole.
Which brings up a scary point. If the targets are this capable and this strange, it makes you wonder about the kind of people who actually hunt them for a living.
The other professionals in the field.
Right. What happens when the players run into rival bounty hunters who are significantly worse than the fugitives? The source material details these apex predators that game masters can unleash, and they are genuinely terrifying.
The toolkit treats rival hunters almost like environmental hazards. The prime example provided is Amaruk Borchas.
Amaruk Borchas is a fellow bounty hunter, but he currently carries a level 3 bounty on his own head for murder and corpse desecration.
Which is basically the highest threat level.
For context, a level 3 bounty in this system usually implies extreme military-grade intervention. And his methodology is just grotesque.
It really is stomach-turning.
The text details that Amaruk literally consumes the heads of his victims. He does this because he believes, and the game leaves it ambiguous whether he actually can do this, that he absorbs their secrets, their habits, and their operational patterns.
He eats their brains for tactical data.
Yes. He leaves a massive trail of empty skulls across the galaxy.
And he operates completely out in the open. The text states he would happily slaughter 20 innocent bystanders just to flesh out a single target. Collateral damage is not a concept he recognizes.
But imagine being in the client's shoes for a second. Why on earth would you hire a literal cannibal who leaves a highly visible trail of desecrated corpses?
It seems counterproductive.
It seems like a spectacular way to draw the worst kind of heat onto your own operations. Why would anyone risk it?
Well, the text explains that Amaruk only works for massive corporate clients who possess the infrastructure to offer him total immunity.
Ah, so they protect him.
This highlights a core theme of the setting. Extreme wealth provides a shield for utter depravity. A corporation will look at a trail of headless corpses, calculate the PR fallout against the value of the retrieved asset, and simply write the cleanup off as a line item on a budget.
That is so bleak.
As long as Amaruk gets the results, his methods are completely protected.
And there's an incredibly dark joke in the text aimed directly at the players regarding him. It suggests a player crew might try to accept the open bounty on Amaruk's head, pretending to hire him for a job just so they can lure him to a secluded location and, quote, get the drop on him.
The classic ambush.
Right. But the text follows that suggestion with a very ominous, what could go wrong? Good luck trying to out-ambush a guy who eats brains for tactical insight.
You are definitely going to be his next meal.
But dealing with a monster like Amaruk or a wild card like Z Potato brings us to the most important mechanic in this entire toolkit. It's what the game calls the consequences system.
This is where the living ecosystem we discussed earlier truly solidifies mechanically at the table. The game requires the person running it to keep something called a Warden's notebook.
I have to admit, when I first read about the Warden's notebook, my immediate thought was, does this bring the game to a screeching halt?
A lot of bookkeeping.
Exactly. How does a game master track a literal butterfly effect for every single decision without a supercomputer?
It's actually handled through a very elegant ledger system. The notebook isn't tracking every footstep or stray bullet. It tracks the major pivot points of a bounty.
Okay.
Every time players capture, kill, or fail to secure a target, they check a specific box in the ledger. That box corresponds to a permanent change in the game's faction mechanics or economic stability.
So what does this all mean? Think of the Warden's notebook like a permanent credit score for your morality and your impact on the universe.
Like a game of Jenga.
Exactly like a cruel game of Jenga. Every violent transaction drops your score with one faction and hikes your interest rates with another. You pull out one specific load-bearing bad guy, and you might collapse the entire local economy.
Let's look at the specifics because the examples in the text show how fast things spiral.
Yeah, take the bounty on Jasmine Ritkusha. She is a prisoner who pleaded guilty to corruption, and her former employer wants her silenced before she actually begins her sentence.
It sounds like a standard mob hit. Go to the prison, eliminate the witness, collect the check.
But if the players actually pull it off and assassinate her inside the facility, the text states the death of an inmate triggers a massive systemic security crackdown by the prison wardens.
And that crackdown fundamentally alters the local map for the players. It immediately ruins all the established prison smuggling routes.
The ripple effect is huge.
It shuts down the short-term mules, which in this lore are usually low-level gang members carrying contraband. It stops the physical smuggling methods, and it completely disrupts that massive pornography empire run by Arwell Ennis that we mentioned earlier.
Wait, really? Just from one hit?
Yes. By firing one bullet, the players destroy the entire black market economy that hundreds of other inmates rely on for basic survival.
That is insane. Or look at the entry for Alma Finch. She has a standard bounty on her head for blackmail. Players might track her down, intending to just shoot first.
Which is usually how these things go.
Right, but if they pause and just talk to her, the text reveals a massive twist. She is actually a blackmail victim.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She doesn't have any credits to pay the players to leave her alone. However, if the players tell her about the hit, she will completely flip the script. She offers to join the players' crew as a gratis mercenary, but only if they immediately help her hunt down and kill the people who put the bounty on her in the first place.
The players walk into a room expecting a quick payout, and they walk out with a new, highly volatile team member and a completely new, far more dangerous mission.
Targeting the very people who hired them.
It recontextualizes the violence and forces the players to make a snap judgment about who they're willing to anger.
Then there is Erasmus X Deberia. He's a local snitch. A violent gang called La Palabra puts out a bounty asking for a messy, highly public execution.
They send a message.
Exactly. If the players do exactly what they are paid to do, if they execute him in the street, the ledger notes that La Palabra's psychological grip on the local populace tightens significantly. Citizens become terrified to talk to the authorities.
The community suffers.
The players get their credits, sure, but they have actively made the community a substantially worse place to live.
And the mechanics layer another complication on top of that. If the players are caught on camera or identified committing this public murder, the local government automatically places a bounty on the players themselves.
So you solve a problem for a client, but you inadvertently draft yourself into a brutal gang war and make yourself an enemy of the state.
It's a cascading failure.
But on the flip side, La Palabra will actively step in to protect the players from the government, providing safe harbor and off-world transport. You are suddenly indebted to a cartel just for doing your job.
This raises an important question about complicity at the gaming table. In this framework, the bounty hunters are never just solving a puzzle in a vacuum.
They are part of the problem.
They are actively and usually violently reshaping a very fragile society. The game forces the players to realize that their intervention, even when well-intentioned, often makes the broader situation much worse for the everyday people trying to survive in the crossfire.
Even when the money is incredibly high, the fallout matches it. Take the case of Varpu Marodok.
The match fixer.
Yes, she is a match fixer carrying a 500,000 credit bounty issued by the Bookmakers Guild. The players track her down, they capture her, and they secure the physical credits.
That's a huge payday.
It is. But the text explicitly notes a temptation mechanic here. If the players decide to just steal that 500,000 credit payout instead of turning Varpu over to the guild, there is a hard 60% chance the Bookmakers Guild finds out about the theft.
And they don't play nice.
And the guild doesn't call the space police to report stolen property. They dispatch elite assassins after the player crew for the rest of the campaign. Every single choice is a massive gamble.
It forces the players to stop viewing the game world as a vending machine, where they insert violence and receive loot. They have to live in the mess they create.
They can't just walk away clean.
Exactly. The mechanics of the Warden's Notebook ensure that their decisions pile up, creating a complex web of enemies and allies based entirely on how much collateral damage they were willing to inflict.
To summarize our dive into this toolkit today, the design here proves that bounties are never just transactions. They are living, breathing ecosystems packed with desperate clients, impossibly weird targets who actively fight back, and inescapable mechanical fallout.
This is very smart design.
The game systematically dismantles the lone wolf fantasy and replaces it with a heavy burden of consequence.
It's a powerful mechanical shift for a tabletop game. Whether you are navigating a grim sci-fi role-playing setting with your friends or just looking at complex systems in the real world, it's a brilliant reminder that seemingly simple tasks almost always mask massive, deeply interconnected webs of cause and effect.
When you pull the thread on that ugly sweater, you have to be prepared for the entire thing to come apart in your hands. And you really might not like what you find underneath.
Which leaves us with a final thought to consider for this deep dive. In this game, every single action creates a permanent, rippling consequence that is meticulously recorded in a ledger. No choice is ever truly forgotten by the universe.
The notebook remembers.
It does. It makes you wonder if a ledger like the Warden's notebook existed for our own world, tracking every social and economic interaction. What unexpected, invisible ripples have we created with our own seemingly isolated everyday decisions?